What big changes do you want to see in the industry coming up?
I think one is vendors will hopefully adopt technology faster and be able to provide that POC to a buyer and say, here, go play for it for 30 days, right? If you love it, let's sign a longer contract. If you don't, then there's no follow down. Instead of us doing 6 or 12 months POCs. The other thing that I would like to see the industry to do is be more inclusive, right? Inclusivity of all kinds of people from all kinds of life. I think one of the big things that we're missing is the inclusivity and making sure that we're accepting and we're bringing in people from all different services, technologies, industries, and making them feel welcome in our roles.
AI is everywhere. I mean, it's already changing the game. I mean, we're already seeing certain applications that have been around getting left behind that aren't making the moves fast enough. We're seeing new companies sprout up out of nowhere with $50 million of funding that are focused on artificial intelligence. So, I mean, I think we're really looking at efficiency in the space and giving property owners and healthcare owners and airport owners and university system owners the ability to automate their operations.
The sale process, when we go to a prospect, it was still pretty evangelical at the time. We had to go in and convince them they needed this, and here's what it's all about, and here's why you can't live without it. That's no longer the case. Today, customers come to us and they say, we know we need this. So I think what's going to happen in the next couple of years, that's going to continue, right? Large enterprises and campuses and healthcare facilities and big pharma and life sciences companies are going to realize we cannot operate our facility inefficiently. And that's what happens when you don't have some software like what we do.
I think we're now on that curve where AI is actually having the real disruptive capability that's promised 18 months ago, but it was still kind of way out there. We didn't think it was really going to be here this quickly. It's happening very fast. People are in the industry also are a lot more intelligent about how to load the training data, how to make the LLMs a lot more intelligent. We've all seen the pitfalls of trusting just the internet as your training source, and I do think we'll start seeing more than just LLMs in there. I think we'll start seeing the apps start to take a bigger hold. I think we'll start seeing more AI bots, and ultimately I think it's going to allow companies like us to do more with fewer people. I think it will help us address the labor shortage. You notice we didn't talk about labor shortage at all this conference, but 2 years ago, it seemed like that was all we talked about. I think AI is having a big impact there.
I'm hopeful that we start seeing more outcome-based services. So building owners not paying for how much time you spent in my building, not paying for how much effort you put in the project, but paying for some outcome that is meaningful to the business. And I think that's the only way we're going to get where we need to go. And I think it's the natural, forced answer to this constrained resource problem that we have.
From our traditional business of consulting, people can educate themselves a lot quicker on some of these topics. So we're having to stay nimble with it too and change our business model to make sure we're helping. As an example of what it's done for us is we don't spend as much time being a traditional consultant, giving you a PDF or a PowerPoint and then disappearing. Now we're doing these things and using some of the tools ourselves to enable, the conversation. So that we're seeing the business model really evolve to that. You have to use technology or you're obsolete.
Commercial real estate has the hardest time with is fragmentation because you've got joint ventures, geographies, third-party property managers, and all kinds of different stakeholders. I think one of the trends that's going to really help with all the technology advancements is dealing with that fragmentation to make more contiguous and harmonious strategies rather than these really separated ones.
I've been one of the ones for the past 18 months kind of going like this, let's call timeout on all the AI hype just for a second until we can get governance and data architecture and consistent universal tagging of specific data that any sort of AI requires. You have to have this base layer built and settled and operational consistently over time before any of that is really going to make much of a difference. The rise of the agentic AI at everybody's laptop has made that very easy and very much in the forefront. So we hear it from our C-level. There's a massive push right now for what are we doing with automation across every business process, not just facilities. So that's where we're heading next is what can we do with agentic, both from a conversational, kind of a transactional, I want to be able to give an agent to all of my executive leadership team within real estate and just say, ask it a question that you would ask me that I would have to have an analyst go pull a dashboard for you. And if an agent can talk directly to this big, massive lake of information, my VP of real estate is going to want to know what 5 construction projects should I be concerned about. And if we have that data landed somewhere, the agent can go look at it. That's a 2-second answer. The operationalization of that entire package, I feel like is more real this year than it has been.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've been using AI on our sensors for over 5 years, over 7 years. And so what I think is exciting about AI in a practical sense right now is using agents to unlock processes and deliver the same thing over and over again, or modify on something that's existing, as opposed to the manual labor that had historically been going into things.
Finally, we might be getting to a point where we're going to be pushing the status quo. I think the last 20 years, there's been a lot of fear of change and resistance to that. With the push of AI and the advent of technology, I think smart buildings are becoming the standard, and it's less of a luxury upgrade. So I think that just embracing that will lead to a lot more innovation.
I think sort of tactically, you still see momentum towards what I would call containerization, where you can deploy different pieces of software, very flexibly, taking you from a world where you've got, a closet full of gateways to, more of a modern sort of IT approach. We're also pretty excited about some work specifically in the control space that's trying to get, I would say traditionally in controls, your building performed based on how well the controls engineer typed in the specification from the mechanical engineer. There's some work now that's starting to allow you to integrate, that programming and that controls much better with the design process and the simulation process, so that you don't have to, have so much dependence on exactly who set up your building. And we feel like that's really cool.
That's gonna be an interesting one. Obviously, with everyone's favorite 4 letters, AI, ML, we're gonna see more of that going on. But I think it's gonna be seen a lot more of, especially in the U.S., where offices are pretty much getting back in. People having to take that leap and make the investment to get all these platforms and technologies, whether it to be local law 97 compliant in New York City or whatever local jurisdictions codes come out. The shift where it's not just top 5% people doing it in each industry or in each city, but the top 50% doing all of this and getting all these stacks put into the building.
What you will see is organizations investing in A, platforms that B, integrate across the organization, right? And that's how we're thinking about it, right? So like we have connectors, right, to bring in data from sensors and access control and all sorts of other types of applications, so that everything flows seamlessly. So it's like minimizing technical debt, investing in platforms, and investing in the integration between those platforms.